My background was very, very different to Bev's, which was brilliant because we didn't know each other three years ago. But her background was Gay Liberation Front. My background was women's liberation, women's aid, etc. I made the wild move into a really boring corporate job, and I worked for American Express for many years. And at that time, I got involved with Stonewall. I loved Stonewall. We all loved Stonewall at that time. It was so well respected. Everything we did was about building bridges. It was about fact. It was about reason. It was about love. And it was also about accepting disagreement, but saying, we are homosexual and we would like to have the same rights as everybody else, even if you don't like homosexuality.
Sure.
So I brought it into my workplace. I was at American Express. Very involved with the Workplace Equality Index, the Diversity Champions Scheme. In fact, I wrote a short article for the Times this year saying we created a monster. Once upon a time, Stonewall represented freedom of expression, freedom of thinking, the ability to disagree. And now, sadly, that has all changed.
So I've invited Stonewall onto this programme many times, and their mantra is no debate.
Exactly.
This has been a turn that has happened over the past 5 years. And they're now very much about the notion of gender ideology.
Yes.
And, of course, most people don't feel they have a gender identity. That is a very particular thing. So can I come to you on this, Bev? Because I've been shocked at the rise of openly homophobic remarks that I've seen online, some very vicious homophobic things, often from people who propose gender ideology as a thing. So what's going on here? And why are Stonewall failing to address it?
Up until 2015, Stonewall was an LGB organisation. It promoted the rights of LGBT people. It originally was against same-sex marriage, but then came on board with it and played a good role in achieving same-sex marriage. And then it found itself, perhaps in 2015, without much left to do, and decided it had to embrace a new mission. One new mission it could have embraced, and I think perhaps it should have embraced, was to fight homophobia around the world, because there are still 69 countries around the world that criminalise homosexuality. That's something that we really ought to be fighting against. And they had another choice, which was perhaps more lucrative, I don't know, and that was to promote gender identity. And I think it's really important to say it's about gender identity, because every time we talk about gender identity, it gets into the papers as new trans rights row. It's not about trans rights.
So, I mean, because you've been described as anti-trans, an anti-trans hate group by some commentators. I mean, how do you respond to that? I mean, do you have a problem with trans people and their rights?
Well, of course not. I mean, lots of trans people support us. And we were called a hate group from within 12 hours of us having our first meeting on the basis that we were called LGB Alliance, which was just a throwaway. I remember when I said to Kate, should we, I don't know, it's about sexual orientation, should we call ourselves LGB Alliance? And she said, well, we could do that. We can always change it later. It was absolutely not a decision to leave out anything. It was just we felt there was a new need to fight this homophobia that you were just talking about.
It's very confusing to me, though, as well, that to say that because you're an LGB charity, that you are being exclusionary. But trans rights was never part of your remit to begin with. That wasn't something you were focusing on sexual orientation.
Well, lots of organisations are focusing on trans rights, and they have every right to. Why shouldn't they? We have a pluralist society. And for those people who do have a gender identity, which is something that, you know, we don't have and lots of people don't have, they have every right to represent those people. But we represent different people who, just as the people I represented in 1970, are attracted to other people of the same sex. But in order to be that, you have to accept that there are two sexes. And as soon as you say, oh, hang on, there aren't two sexes, no, what we've really got is a gender, and there's an infinite number of genders, and some people are not any gender at all, and then you can't, basically, you haven't got homosexuality anymore.